How Saddam Hussein rose to power. Curiously, Saddam Hussein's journey to the summit of power in Iraq began after a failed assassination attempt in October 1959. A commando of members from the Peace Party, including a young Saddam Hussein at the age of 22, carried out a street attack to assassinate the Iraqi Prime Minister, Abdul Karim Qasim. The operation fell apart when one of the members prematurely fired, and Qasim managed to survive. Although Saddam's driver was killed, several conspirators, including Saddam, escaped to Syria, a hotbed of Ba'athism. In Damascus, Hussein met Michel Aflaq, the ideologue and main founder of Ba'athism, who would become the most influential supporter in his career. In this video, we will delve into Saddam Hussein's rise to power and explore the major events during his 24-year reign. These events include his mutual animosity with Ayatollah Khomeini, the bloody war with Iran, the invasion and expulsion of Kuwait, and the US-led campaign that toppled his regime and led to his death. But before we delve deeper, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to stay updated with our latest content. The Ottoman Empire and British Mandate. Until the First World War, the territory known today as Iraq was under the rule of the Turkmen of the Kara Koyunlu or the Black Sheep dynasty, a Persian-influenced Muslim monarchy that also controlled Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, and northwest Iran. In 1466, the Black Sheep were defeated by the White Sheep, who, in turn, succumbed to the Safavid dynasty, another Iranian dynasty that briefly controlled Mesopotamia from the 16th century. From the 16th century until 1917, almost all of Iraq came under the direct or indirect rule of the Ottoman Empire, governed from Baghdad as a province since 1533. During the nearly 4 centuries of Ottoman control, Iraq became a battleground between rival regional empires and tribal alliances. According to an Ottoman census from 1885, the Mosul province had an area of 76,000 square kilometers and a population of 300,000 inhabitants. The Baghdad province covered 141,000 square kilometers, and had a population of 850,000, while the Basra province was the smallest and least populous, with an area of 43,000 square kilometers and 200,000 inhabitants. Iran's Safavid dynasty briefly asserted its hegemony over Iraq from 1508 to 1533 and later from 1622 to 1638. From 1747 to 1831, Iraq was ruled by Mamluk military leaders of Georgian origin who were granted some autonomy by the Ottomans. The Mamluks suppressed tribal revolts, restored order, curbed the power of the Janissaries, and implemented economic and military modernization programs. In 1831, the Ottomans eliminated the Mamluk regime and re-established direct control over Iraq. British Mandate period. Turkish control over Iraq continued until the First World War when the Ottoman Empire aligned with Germany and Austria-Hungary to fight against the Allies, consisting of the British Empire, France, and later the United States and the Russian Empire. The British invaded Iraq during the Mesopotamian campaign, although they initially faced defeat by the Ottoman Turks at the Siege of Kut, located 160 kilometers south of Baghdad. Finally, the United Kingdom emerged victorious in the Mesopotamian campaign, capturing Baghdad in March 1917, thus ending Ottoman rule in the major Iraqi city. During this time, various Arab, Armenian, and Assyrian tribes supported the British against the Ottomans, who, in turn, received support from the Kurds. With the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after the Great War, Mesopotamia came under British mandate, as determined by the League of Nations. The United Kingdom defined Iraq's territorial boundaries, established an Arab Hashemite monarchy, and disregarded Iraq's ethnic and religious mosaic, particularly the Christian Assyrians in the north and the Kurds. The Kurds fought for independence during the British occupation, utilizing both military and non-military means, and faced severe repression. Independent Kingdom of Iraq. Iraq achieved independence and became a sovereign state in 1932, officially ending the British Mandate. Immediately after the war, Sir Arnold Wilson, the colonial administrator of Mesopotamia, had proposed making the Iraqi territory a colony of India. The establishment of a unified Arab monarchy in Iraq sparked Shiite, Assyrian, and other protests, which were brutally suppressed in 1936 during the reign of King Ghazi, son of Faisal. In 1936, Iraq witnessed the first modern military coup in the Arab world, the Pan-Arab coup, against Prime Minister Yassin al-Hashimi by General Bakr Siddiqui, the Chief of Staff. This was followed by subsequent coups, leading to a period of political instability that extended until 1941. That year, Rashid Ali and his allies overthrew the regent's government, establishing a short-lived pro-Nazi regime. After the British victory in the Anglo-Iraqi War in the same year, Iraq was used by the Allies as a base to attack Vichy-controlled Syria, and support the Anglo-Soviet invasion of Iran. Post-World War II and the Republic of Iraq. After World War II, Iraq joined the United Nations and became one of the founding members of the Arab League. In 1948, violent protests known as the Al-Wathbar uprising erupted in Baghdad against the Iraqi-British treaty. These protests ended in May 1948 when martial law was declared in response to Iraq's participation in the failed Arab-Israeli war promoted by the Arab League. In 1958, the Hashemite kingdoms of Jordan and Iraq attempted to unify their monarchies to counter the recently formed Egyptian-Syrian alliance. However, Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Said sought to incorporate Kuwait into the Arab Union, a proposition rejected by the United Kingdom, which opposed Kuwait's independence. As a result, the Iraqi monarchy found itself completely isolated, and Nouri al-Said could only contain growing protests through increased repression. Republic of Iraq and Ba'ath Party. Inspired by the Egyptian nationalist leader Jamal Abdel Nasser, who became a prominent figure in the Arab and Pan-Arab world after the nationalization of the Suez Canal in 1956, Iraqi officers overthrew the Hashemite monarchy on July 14, 1958. The coup was led by Brigadier Abdul Karim Qasim, known as the leader, and Colonel Abdul Salam Arif. The new government declared Iraq a republic, rejecting the proposal of a union with the Kingdom of Jordan. In this new scenario, Iraq withdrew from the military alliance known as the Baghdad Pact, in which it participated alongside Iran, Turkey, Pakistan, and the United Kingdom. Brigadier Qasim, a civic nationalist, promoted the idea of a united Iraq that embraced the cultural diversity of different ethnic and religious groups, including Mesopotamian Arabs, Turkmen, Kurds, Chaldeans, Assyrians, Mandeans, Yazans, Yazidis, and others. Qasim's nationalist vision acknowledged Iraq's identity derived from ancient Mesopotamia, incorporating influences from Sumerian, Akkadian, Mesopotamian, and Assyrian civilizations. In 1961, Kuwait achieved independence from the United Kingdom, and Iraq claimed sovereignty over the territory, leading to a period of considerable political instability. The same year, Kurdish leader Mustafa Barzani, who had been invited back to Iraq by Prime Minister Qasim, rebelled against the government and established a stronghold in the northern part of the country, sparking the First Kurdish-Iraqi War. On February 8, 1963, Qasim was assassinated during a coup led by the Ba'ath Party, and General Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr became the Prime Minister, with Colonel Abdul Salam Arif as the President. In June, Syria, which had also fallen under the control of the Ba'ath Party, joined Iraq in a military campaign against the Kurds in what became known as the November 1963 events. Salah Arif led another coup within the Ba'ath Party but died in April 1966 in a helicopter accident. He was succeeded by his brother, General Abdul Rahman Arif. The Iraqi government made another effort to defeat the Kurds but failed when Barzani's forces decisively defeated the Iraqi army in the Battle of Mount Handrin in May 1966. Following Israel's victory over the United Arab Republic coalition of Syria, Jordan, and Iraq in the Six-Day War in July 1967, the Ba'ath Party regained power in Iraq. In 1968, the new Ba'athist government, led by Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, initiated another campaign against the Kurdish insurgency. However, this campaign stalled in 1969 due to tensions with Iran and internal power struggles in Baghdad. Additionally, the Soviet Union pressured the Iraqi government to reach an agreement with Kurdish leader Barzani. The hostilities ended with over 100,000 casualties but without significant gains for either the Ba'athist government or the Kurdish rebels. In March 1970, a peace plan was launched, which included expanding Kurdish autonomy and their access to Iraqi government organs over a 4-year period. Despite this, the Iraqi government implemented a program of Arabization in the oil-rich Kirkuk and Karnakin regions. In the following years, the government overcame its internal differences, established a friendship treaty with the USSR, and ended its isolation. On the other hand, the Kurds were weakened and became dependent on the military support provided by Iran. The Second Kurdish-Iraqi War erupted in 1974 and concluded in 1975 with a decisive victory for Iraq. Prior to Saddam Hussein's rise to power, in 1963, Abdul Karim Qasim survived an assassination attempt in October 1959, and there were speculations that the idea of killing him may have come from Jamal Abdel Nasser due to Qasim's refusal to join the United Arab Republic. Rumors also circulated that the participants in the assassination attempt were trained in Damascus. One of the participants was a member of the Ba'ath Party named Saddam Hussein, aged 22. However, there is no information suggesting that Hussein traveled outside Iraq to receive training. It appears that Hussein's involvement in the failed assassination attempt on Al-Rashid Street ended with him prematurely firing shots, causing disarray in the operation. The driver was killed, and the commando believed they had fatally wounded Abdul Karim Qasim, but he survived. Nonetheless, Hussein would later turn his involvement in the failed assassination into a myth to enhance his public image. Some of the conspirators, including Hussein, escaped to Syria, where Michel Aflaq, the ideologue and main founder of Ba'athism, granted Saddam full membership in the party. Aflaq promoted Hussein within the Ba'ath Party in Iraq, and eventually, Abdul Karim Qasim was overthrown and executed in February 1963. Abdul Salam Arif, the successor to al-Bakr, initiated a purge, and Hussein was arrested in 1964. He spent 2 years in prison before escaping. His influential role in the failed assassination attempt and subsequent events would shape his public image. Valador Michel Aflaq intervened again, and in 1966, as the Deputy Secretary of the Regional Command, he participated in the bloodless coup of Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, which overthrew Abdul Rahman Arif in July 1968. Aflaq was appointed as the deputy to the new president and vice president of the Ba'athist Revolutionary Command Council. In 1969, Saddam Hussein emerged as the main driving force of the Ba'ath Party. He nationalized oil in 1972 as the vice president of the Revolutionary Command Council, formally making him the second in command in Iraq. Saddam Hussein gained a reputation as an effective and progressive leader. His reputation grew as he worked to unify and strengthen Ba'athism, and faced the major problems of Iraq. He focused on achieving stability in a country plagued by deep tensions long before the Ba'ath Party came to power. Iraq was a hotbed of ethnic, religious, social, and economic divisions, including Arabs versus Kurds, Sunnis versus Shiites, nomads versus sedentary populations, and rural tribal leaders versus urban leaders. Hussein desired a stable government in a nation torn by factionalism. He aimed to improve the standard of living by resorting to massive repression, promoting economic modernization, and ensuring government stability through a strong security apparatus to prevent rebellions and coup attempts. He also aimed to expand his support base within the driving forces of Iraqi society and developed effective mass mobilization capabilities while closely monitoring the administration of government development and welfare programs. At the core of this strategy were Iraq's immense oil reserves. On June 1, 1972, Hussein oversaw the seizure of the transnational oil industry, which dominated Iraq's energy sector at the time. A year later, the oil prices skyrocketed due to the 1973 energy crisis, and the influx of petrodollars into Iraq's coffers allowed Hussein to expand his agenda. He campaigned for free education and literacy programs, providing unprecedented social services to the Iraqi population. He introduced compulsory free education, launched a national campaign to eradicate illiteracy, provided support to the families of military members, offered free healthcare services to the entire population, and granted subsidies to farmers. By the 1970s, Iraq had one of the most modern and comprehensive public healthcare systems in the Middle East, earning recognition from the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. Hussein also focused on fostering loyalty among party members in rural areas. After the nationalization of oil, he supervised the modernization and large-scale mechanization programs in the agricultural sector. Iraq's income diversification increased as Hussein brought in millions of foreign Arab workers, including those from Yugoslavia, to meet the insatiable demand for labor. The increased oil revenue allowed the Iraqi government, driven primarily by Hussein, to diversify the country's economy. Ambitious infrastructure development programs were initiated, including the construction of highways and roads, expansion of mining activities, and the development of other industrial sectors. Electricity, once a service accessible only to the elite in Iraq, began reaching almost every city and peripheral area of the country. During the 1960s, the majority of the Iraqi population lived in rural areas, with 2/3 being farmers. However, this number rapidly declined during the 1970s as oil income increased from less than $500 million to billions of dollars, and industrial expansion demanded a significant labor force. The magnitude of oil revenue allowed for corruption and poor economic decisions, making oil the primary political beneficiary for Hussein. Similar to Adolf Hitler, Hussein garnered early praise for revitalizing the German industry, ending massive unemployment, and building highways. Saddam Hussein gained admiration abroad for his actions, demonstrating a good instinct for what the Arab street demanded. After the decline of Egyptian leadership caused by the trauma of Israel's victory in the Six-Day War in 1967, the death of the beloved Arab hero Abdel Nasser in 1970, and his successor Anwar Sadat's betrayal in seeking peace with Israel, Hussein portrayed himself as the defender of Arabism against Jews or Persians. He ruled with an iron fist and was consistent like a drum, with his security forces, such as the Mukhabarat, paying off dozens of Arab news editors, writers, and artists. With the sick and elderly President al-Bakr giving him increasing space, Hussein became the de facto leader of Iraq before formally reaching the pinnacle of power in 1979. In July 1979, Hussein forced al-Bakr to resign and officially assumed the presidency of Iraq. However, tensions continued to rise between Iraq and Iran. Hussein and the influential Iranian religious leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini became enemies in the 1970s. Khomeini was exiled by the Shah of Iran in 1964 and sought refuge in Iraq, a country with a Shiite Muslim majority like Iran. While initially tolerating Khomeini's presence, Hussein became wary when Khomeini started urging the Shiite population in Iraq to overthrow the Ba'athist government. Under pressure from the pro-American Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who had initiated a rapprochement with Iraq in 1975, Hussein decided to expel Khomeini to France in 1978. This move risked inciting a Shiite rebellion in Iraq. In 1979, Khomeini led the Islamic Revolution in Iran, overthrowing the Shah and establishing a theocratic dictatorship. Khomeini's radicalism and anti-Americanism fueled Shiite populations in all Arab countries. The war between Iran and Iraq seemed imminent. The war broke out in 1980, with Iraq initially gaining support from the Arab and Western world, led by the United States and Europe, who viewed Hussein as the agent of the civilized world against barbarism. After initial victories, the Iraqi offensive was countered by waves of fanatical Shiite attacks, and by 1982, Hussein found himself on the defensive, seeking ways to end the hostilities. The war became a brutal conflict, one of the most heinous of the 20th century, especially due to Iraq's use of chemical weapons against the Iranians and Kurds, who were trying to open a second front against their Iraqi oppressors. The war with Iran plunged Iraq into debt, and Hussein had to borrow extensively to rebuild the country. Saddam sought international support, especially after his oil wells in the Persian Gulf became targets of Iranian naval attacks. The whole world feared the religious revolution led by Ayatollah Khomeini, and the United States, the Soviet Union, China, and France provided military and financial aid to Iraq. On March 16, 1988, the Iraqi army attacked the Kurdish city of Halabja with a mix of mustard gas and nerve agents, killing 5,000 civilians and maiming or mutilating 10,000 more. Iraq tried to attribute the attack to Iran but was unsuccessful. The bloody war reached a stalemate in August 1988, with the borders nearly returning to their original positions. Both sides claimed victory. Financing the war and preventing the expansion of Shiite Islamism led Hussein to borrow billions of dollars from Arab countries and other sources. However, Khomeini emerged as a hero who had defended Iran and prolonged the war with little foreign support against Iraq, which was backed by infidels. This perception fueled Shiite radicalism across Arab countries and within Iraq itself, where tensions grew between the Sunni Ba'ath Party and the predominantly Shiite population. Faced with the need to rebuild Iraq's infrastructure destroyed during the war, and with the Shiite population resisting, Hussein needed more money and continued to burden the country with debt. The Gulf War erupted as Iraq had a long-standing claim on Kuwaiti territory. On August 2, 1990, Saddam Hussein invaded oil-rich Kuwait, annexing it as Iraq's 19th province. Hussein justified the invasion in the name of Islam and nationalism. However, when later asked why he had done it, he mentioned Iraq's historical claim on Kuwait and stated, "When something occurs to me, I act accordingly. I am the president." The United States and the United Kingdom, led by President George H.W. Bush and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, respectively, considered Hussein's action unacceptable. They formed an international coalition to expel Iraq from Kuwait with the backing of the United Nations. The UN Security Council imposed a deadline for Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait, which was set for January 15, 1991. Hussein ignored the ultimatum, and the world entered a countdown to military action. Meanwhile, the Iraqi army looted Kuwait, including marble from Kuwaiti palaces, while Hussein offered to withdraw his forces if Israel would withdraw from the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights. This move was a cunning political maneuver by Saddam, causing tensions between the Arab members of the coalition and their respective populations. In the end, despite Hussein's extravagant military rhetoric, and the support he received in the Arab and Islamic worlds, the Iraqi army proved to be no match for the coalition forces. The Iraqis were expelled from Kuwait in February 1991 through a ground attack by US and UK armored divisions and infantry. Regarding the end of Saddam Hussein, the United States decided not to pursue the overthrow of Hussein in Baghdad in 1991, which would have led to another war. The Iraqi leader claimed his survival as proof of his victory in the war and managed to prolong his control over Iraq into the new century. However, in 2002, President George W. Bush labeled Iraq, along with Iran and North Korea, as part of the axis of evil, accusing Iraq of pursuing weapons of mass destruction. The US-led invasion of Iraq began in March 2003, and the Iraqi army quickly crumbled. Baghdad fell on April 9, and at that time, Hussein's whereabouts were unknown. In July 2003, Saddam Hussein's sons, Uday and Qusay Hussein, along with his 14-year-old grandson Mustafa, were killed in a shootout with US soldiers. The United States launched Operation Red Dawn to locate and capture Hussein, and on December 13, 2003, he was found hiding in a hole near Tikrit. After being handed over by the US to the interim government of Iraq, Hussein was tried for crimes against humanity and sentenced to death. On November 5, 2006, the death sentence was carried out on December 30, 2006, in Baghdad. Before his execution, he uttered, "May God's blessings be upon Muhammad and his family, and may God hasten their appearance and curse their enemies." Saddam Hussein committed barbaric atrocities during his time in power, leaving a legacy of blood and pain among the Iraqi people. Over a decade and a half after his death, the remnants of his regime continue to cast a shadow over Iraq's future. We hope this video has been helpful to you. If you have anything to add, please share it with us in the comments section. Like this video and share the link with your family and best friends, so that they can also learn more about how Saddam Hussein came to power. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We'll be back soon with more curiosities from history.